When I went to KeyForge Celebration last year and got my hands on some Winds of Exchange decks, there were two things I really wanted to open. A Cursed Relic deck, an artifact that enhances a whole key's worth of Ember for a cost, and a deck with Norbin's Cavern, which brings along the Emberling token creature that can be spent as Ember. I didn't end up opening an Emberling deck, but I did open a very spicy Cursed Relic deck, definitely the best of the WoE decks I opened that weekend. I even made a whole video on it. So today, I thought it could be interesting to cover 8 things on my Winds of Exchange bucket list, cards and decks that I really hope to open upon the imminent release of Winds of Exchange. Let's get into it. First off, obviously, is an Emberling deck. In my personal opinion, I believe solid Emberling decks will be super OP. Spamming out these token creatures that can be spent as Ember just seems insane to me. So if your deck can generate them at a quick pace, 1 or 2 or more of them per turn, that'll be so difficult for your opponent to keep up with without the proper tools. They'll have to have some measure of board control constantly at their disposal. At 1 power, Emberlings wouldn't be too difficult to deal with, but Norbin's Cavern, the rare artifact that Emberlings are connected to, boosts them up to a whopping 4 power and gives them skirmish to boot. So now, in addition to Ember bonus icons and reaping and generating Ember normally, you're also creating loads of 4 power creatures that can be spent as Ember. This is definitely a top 3 token creature for me, and I haven't even used them yet. I really hope to open a deck that can utilize them to their fullest extent, or even craft an alliance deck that can do so. Second, I would like to open a deck with Antiquities Dealer, a rare Ecodon creature that reads Action, gain 2 Ember if you control at least 1 artifact. Now that effect is already pretty bonkers on its own, but what's cool about the dealer is that he always brings a couple artifacts from past sets with him as Legacy Mavericks. A Legacy Maverick is an exceptionally rare instance of a legacy showing up in the wrong house. For example, imagine opening an Age of Ascension deck with a Battlefleet in House Dis. Battlefleet is a Mars card from Call of the Archons, so it's both a legacy and a Maverick at the same time. That's what Antiquities Dealer does, but for artifacts, bringing a couple artifacts from past sets and putting them in House Ecodon. Imagine having an Autoencoder or an Obsidian Forge in your Winds of Exchange deck. The sheer potential is limitless, so the dealer is definitely high on my bucket list for me. Third on my list is Collector Born with lots of upgrades. Collector Born reads, play, put an upgrade from your discard pile into your hand. After an upgrade is attached to Collector Born, ready Collector Born. With lots of upgrades with Ember Pips and potentially some enhancements, Born could act as a source for some major burst, in addition to providing some pretty solid upgrade recursion. If your Echo Reflector is lost to your discard pile, Born could retrieve it for you in a critical moment. Also, the upgrades Star Alliance has in the set are pretty bonkers for the most part, so I feel like Born could really go off with the right stuff. The fourth thing I want to open is a super disruptive Unfathomable pod. I already made a video about this pod I opened at KFC with double Chosen One, double Illusions of Grandeur with Abyssal Sight, and that's pretty amazing, but I think things could get even more disruptive than that. Multiple copies of Abyssal Sight is a must. It's such a ridiculously powerful card, being able to see and manipulate your opponent's hand, and doing so 2 or 3 times throughout one cycle of your deck would be devastating. 1 or 2 copies of Illusions of Grandeur would be nice to have, same with Befuddle. Hook me up with Bryozorch, Cop, and definitely Itamodi the Damned. All 3 of these creatures are practically witch creatures. Your opponent needs to deal with them as soon as they hit the board. They're incredibly disruptive and can absolutely shut your opponent down, especially in conjunction with the rest of what I mentioned. Great Unfathomable pods will undoubtedly be seen in top Winds of Exchange decks, and I really hope to get my hands on one. Now, for this next one, as soon as these cards were spoiled to the public, I'm sure it ended up on everyone's wish list, a Blorb deck. This absolute meme of a token creature is connected to Blorb Hive, a pretty unique key cheat that lets you forge for free under the right circumstances. However, I've heard that Blorb Hive is actually pretty dang hard to pull off. It's extremely inconsistent and doesn't go off very often, especially if you don't generate many tokens. So I don't want just any old Blorb Hive deck. I want one that can forge with Blorb Hive regularly. Give me all the inspiring orations and Squire recruitment so that I can spam tokens as much as possible. Make the whole deck support the Blorb Hive. Just anything to make the Blorb Hive cheat a regular occurrence and I'll be happy. Number 6 also shows up in Mars. I want to open a Nautilixian deck. Nautilixian comes with 4 supporting pilots, the green, purple, red, and white aeronauts. Each of these pilots supports the Nautilixian in some way, from giving it splash attack 3 to causing a true one-sided board wipe when it fights. Nautilixian itself is a beast of a creature that can't be used unless at least 1 pilot has been used that turn, so things won't always work out for it, but when it does, it looks like a lot of fun. It seems to be a pretty neat concept for a creature, although I think Nautilixian could have been cooler as a gigantic creature, like those seen in Mass Mutation. At number 7, we have a card that I actually opened in one of my Unchained decks, Endless Hordes. It reads, play, for each enemy creature, make a token creature, ready it, and have it fight that enemy creature, ignoring taunt. Resolve these fights 1 at a time. On its own, this card is already insane, creating a truly massive fighting turn under the right circumstances, wrecking the opponent's board, putting damage everywhere, or just straight up removing most of their battle line. Now, combine that with the token creature Bellatoran Warrior, the largest token creature out there with 5 power, 2 armor, and you've got a true army on your hands. You could easily wipe most of, if not all of the opponent's board with these guys, and then the opponent will be left with an empty board, facing down a legion of Belatoran warriors and whatever else you have on board. Endless Hordes and Belatoran Warrior, that's number 7. And finally for today, I hope to open a good Ancient Battleground deck. Ancient Battleground is a rare artifact that reads, each friendly creature cannot reap, and gains after fight, gain 1 Ember. This is one of those artifacts that'll end up in the discard pile most of the time, but if your deck strategy is to fight a lot, this is an artifact that can consistently reward you for it. If you've got lots of strong Brobnar and Saurian creatures in your deck, with some Brick Nasties and Imperator Drusilas, Ancient Battleground could be the perfect complement to that. You'll also have to read deck matchups as well. Your deck may be fully suited for a fight-based game plan, but if your opponent has a really low creature count, or their strategy doesn't revolve around having any sort of board, Ancient Battleground will just hurt you more than help you. Either way, I hope to find a decent Battleground deck and figure out how to use it to its fullest potential. And there we have it, 8 things I hope to open when Winds of Exchange finally releases. Let me know what you guys have on your Winds of Exchange wishlist. I would love to hear what you all are most looking forward to when the new set drops. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all again in the next one. See you later.